Welcome everyone. This is just going to be a simple video on how to do a simple program, how to set up a simple program, and some of the coding standards that I'm going to ask you to do in this class. So notice that I've opened up Visual Studio and it begins with a bunch of stuff here on the left. Now these are projects that I've already done before. So what I want to do is click on Continue Without Code. And you don't need to worry about this because I have this set in here for information persons for me. If you get this sign into Visual Studio, you can ignore it. You don't need to assign it because Visual Studio Community is free, doesn't require a license, so you can ignore that. So now we have basically nothing. You won't see this in here, but I'm going to go and click on New, and I'm going to click on Project. So you want to make sure here you have C++ selected. You probably won't have many more options than C++, but you notice that I have tons of different ones here available for me, but I want the C++. And you always want to use an empty project. Ignore what all these other things are. So I'm going to click on Empty Project, and I'm going to click on Next. Then you're going to name it in here. So I'm going to call this Sum. And what I normally do is I put in the date so I can sort them and make them easy for me. And today is the 11th, and I'm just going to call this Sum. And I have my location. I teach different classes, so let's go to our class here. And we're going to do Miami-Dade. And we're going to do 2023. And these are summer. So let's go to summer. And I'm going to set up a folder called VS, it stands for Visual Studio 2022. And I'm going to click on select the folder here. And everything looks good. Now, this is important. If you put place, solution, and project in the same directory, it saves you a lot of hassles when you try to be in there. So when you go and uncheck this, it creates an extra directory. So it's going to be easier for you to find it. So just make sure that this is checked and you're good to go. So now we have the source files in here is what we actually want to add. You don't really need to worry about any of this stuff right now. We get into classes, you're going to need header files, but right now that's several weeks away. So I'm going to click on Add, and I'm going to create a new item. So it gives me options. What do I want to create? C++ file, a header file, a class. So here we're going to do a C++ file, and you always want to name it something decent. So I'm just going to call it Sum. So I'm going to click on Add, and now we have absolutely nothing. So the very first thing that you need to do is put in comments. So what I did was I did the slash and then a star, and Visual Studio adds the second thing for me. If I hit the Enter key, it should add another star for me, but it really doesn't matter if it did. It does. So first thing is you're going to put your name. And then you're going to put a description of the program. So I'm just going to write description of the program. In this particular case, we're going to write a program. This program is going to get several numbers, get the sum of the numbers, and get the average of the numbers. So that's what you would put in there. You don't have to write a book. So just write a simple description. So that's first thing that is required on all programs. Notice the key word, all, not some. All. So the next thing you're going to do is your includes. So let me put a single line comment, and I'll put includes here. And then I'm going to do include IO stream. So notice that as soon as I start typing, it brings up all the IOs. And if I go to this here, now don't hit the enter key, hit the tab key. And notice that there is no semicolon after there. So I'm going to leave out using namespace just to show you why you want to put it back in. So first thing is we have integer main. We need an opening bracket. We need a return. Now this is not required, but I highly recommend that you do it. After each closing bracket, put a comment as to where it begins. So you say, what's the big deal? The answer is when you start getting nested statements and blocks of code, and you have all kinds of different functions, and you accidentally delete one bracket, it makes it almost impossible to figure out which one you broke. So if I had a whole bunch of stuff and I have an opening bracket here, but I have no closing bracket for main, it's a lot easier to find if I have them listed. So that's no big deal. So what I want to do now is declare two integers. So I'm going to do it wrong first, and we're going to just do two numbers. So I'm going to do number 1 and number 2. So you do not want to do this. So what you need to do is one of two things. Either declare each one on a separate line with the data type, and I'll show you a shortcut how to do that. And also, each thing that you declare must, now this is not a suggestion, it must be initialized. There are reasons behind this, and I will discuss them as time progresses. But it's very, very important that you initialize each one. In all probability, the compiler is going to initialize it for you automatically, but there's no guarantee, especially if you're not using Visual Studio. So then we're going to put a semicolon and then a comment for the purpose of variable, or what the variable does. So then we're going to do number 2. Notice again here. And you have to use your own judgment sometimes on these comments in there. Just something simple is good. So now what we want to do is we need to print out a prompt to get the information from the user. So then I'm going to go back later and show you an easier way how to declare those numbers. So let's go and do cout. Remember, we learned cout. Cout. What is first number? And here on the cout is a question mark and a space, and there is no end line. So let's go back and talk about this ugly squiggly thing here. Why is that? So basically it's saying there is no cout. It's not really sure what cout actually is, but we say, wait a minute, we have IO stream. Isn't cout part? Yes, it is, but it's also part of the standard nameplate. So what we have to do either is tell it it's part of the standard namespace, or we can type in std and 2 colons. But that's going to be a real pain to do every single time we do a cout or we do a cin. So let's go and talk about this cout here. Notice we have what is the first number, we have a space, and there's no end line. So that's also, when you're doing a user prompt, you never want to have an end line. You want to be able to make it go on the same line. It's much easier for the user. So let's go, how do we get this input? Very simple, a standard console in, and notice that the brackets go the opposite direction, and we have the same issue with cin, and we're going to do number 1. So that gets there. So what we need to do here is put in std there. But that's going to be a real pain in the you-know-what. So what we're going to do is put in using namespace. And which one? We're going to do standard. So we do not have to put in the standard, but I'll leave it for now. And then we're going to do cout. What is second number? So now you're looking at, I don't understand, what's wrong? Why has return got this ugly squiggly red line underneath it? And the answer is very simple, because we don't have the semicolon here. So once we do the semicolon, it should disappear. Sometimes it takes you clicking to the next line, but in this particular case, it went away. So here we have CN and then number 2. So we're going to get our 2 numbers. So now we have an issue. We need a way to add them together. So we're going to have a third variable, and we're going to call it sum. So this is going to be very simple. If I were to tell you, get the sum of 2 numbers, I'm hoping the first thing you're going to say is we just add them together. And that's all we have to do in this particular case. So I'm going to click in sum. We're saying that sum equals, and now here's the important part. Every calculation for this class, everyone, not just some, not every other one, but every calculation needs to have parentheses around it. So let's just do number 1. Now notice as I'm typing, look what it's done. It's got the numbers there for me already. So that's pretty good. That's called IntelliSense. And then plus. Now, one good thing about Visual Studio, it usually adds the spaces for you. So you don't have to physically type in the space number 2. And let's see if that's going to be the case here. When we go to the next, see how it added there for me? But, you know, again, it looks much nicer without those spaces there, or with the spaces there. So now what we're going to do here is let's print a sum. So we're just going to do simple C out the sum is, and notice the space after is, and sum, and then end line. And then we're good here. So let's run this program, and we'll add 2 simple numbers together. Then we're going to make a mistake, and I'll show you later on how to fix that. So we have in here, what is the first number? So I'll just do 10. What is the second number? Do 7. And it should give us the sum is 17. So this looks good in here. So now let's do that easier way of declaring variables. So I'm going to do integer, and then I'm hitting the enter key. Now, you can do it either way. I have no problem with that, as long as you don't declare the same variable or different variables on the same line. I'm going to do number 1 equals 0. Now, this time, no semicolon. I'm going to do a comma, and then I'll put purpose. So we don't need this anymore. And I'm going to hit the enter key. Notice how it lines up nice. Then I'm going to do 2 equals 0. And then I'm going to do sum equals 0. Now I need a semicolon because I'm at the end. So let's go and do sum of the numbers. And see, I think that's much easier and clearer. Plus, it gives you the opportunity to initialize each variable and comment them. So let's go and do the same thing. Let's get rid of the C out, the STD before it. We don't need it anymore. And then let's do this. Let's go and put in an end line here. And let's put it actually in the second one so you can see the difference. So let's run this program again. And you should see there's something different about the 2. Ah, Daniel, you're here. Awesome. So give me a second, and that's great because I'm recording something. So let's go and run this again. And what is the first number? So it's do 10. Now we have, what is the second number? Notice now it's down here. Makes it a little bit more challenging. So second number, so it should give us 27. So you don't want to have end lines here. So this is a simple program in here. So I'm going to end this video right now, and then we're going to go and have a part 2 of the video, and we're going to get the average of it. So I'm going to introduce you to integer division, and I'm going to introduce you to a few more good things that you should do, and to make sure that you understand all that stuff. Then hopefully the more videos that we do and the more practice that you get, hopefully that's going to help you out. All right. So much for this.